on Five Eyes TV. Today I'll be speaking to a retired business entrepreneur, Tony Agostini. Welcome, Tony. When you left school, did you know what career path you wanted to take? What was your first job?
Yeah, I worked at Fern Barnet Hospital, you know, real old Gothic type institutions. And I remember on one ward there was an elderly black woman that was brought in. And that was a classic example of having carers who were probably well-meaning, you know, doctors and nurses. But they were having to work with someone that they couldn't understand, A, and B, because of culture, a lot of what she was saying was being misinterpreted. And I think, thankfully, I was there to kind of say, look, you know, this is what she actually means. When she said the beans have a chill in it, she's not hallucinating. She just means the beans are cool. You know. That's right. Yeah, so, but that also was a bit of an eye-opener for me as well. And so I left there and went into social work and trained at Middlesex University. Went from there to work for Islington. Islington was fine, you know, but it didn't offer me the challenges that I wanted, because I think I was always eager to learn, you know, and I don't think I was being challenged, and wanted to be challenged. And I would kind of, during the team meetings when they were allocating cases, I would always look for the cases that were the most difficult, the most challenging. And I had one such case that involved a mother, single parent, that was seriously mentally ill. And I think the services were failing her. And she was bringing up a child who was very isolated, was developing behavioral problems. And I felt that we had a right to be involved very early. It was unsafe to have this woman with this child, sometimes going up along Holloway Road, putting, you know, lighting paper and putting it through letter boxes and everything. And so what happened with that case, I caseworked the family, well, the mother and child, and was, you know, had not just the Mental Health Act legislation to learn and understand, but also childcare legislation. And so, you know, that family took me through the full range of childcare legislation and also the Mental Health Act.
You're an expert, then you must be.
Yeah, I became, and so then went from there to Hackney as a mental health social worker, and was then appointed as a senior practitioner in forensic psychiatry, because they were looking at setting up a medium secure unit in Hackney. And I was appointed to represent the directorate, Hackney Social Services. And once the unit was built, I then was running the Forensic Services Social Work Department at the MSU. So I think it's now called the Howard Center or something.
So did you sort of see a gap?
Yeah, with regards to that, I mean, once again, in running the services, what also was very clear is the overrepresentation of especially young black men on restrictive mental health orders. You know, that was very clear. And I think there's a fear factor there. You know, I think to a lot of people, the powers of be, you know, you're big, you're black, you're bad as well as you're mad. And I think it's about controlling that. I mean, there were people put on sort of sections of, restrictive sections of the Mental Health Act that I think had they not been black, they probably wouldn't have been there. You know, that's a reality. The other problem is once you get into the system and you fight the system then comes down on you even harder, because the next step from your ordinary psychiatric hospital. It's for somebody to ask for, a consultant to ask for forensic hospital assessment. And that's another step up the ladder, because you could be moving from general psychiatric to medium secure to special hospital. And I, have no one tell you that cannot happen, because I worked with a guy that was admitted to Hackney Hospital voluntarily. His family took him there. And so he was admitted, was beginning to kick up, but he didn't want to be here, he walked in so he can walk out. They then sectioned him, right? Started to really kick up against the sectioning, the fact that he was now sectioned, to the point where he would throw things around the ward, never attacking anyone.
No, but it's probably frustration.
Yes, because there was nothing he can't get out. And they asked for a forensic assessment, and he was then moved from the ward he was on to this medium interim secure unit of it where I was working. And I had to actually, because he was then kicking up on there and throwing things around, I actually had to say to him one day, listen, I've just come off of a ward wrong where they're looking to have a special hospital assessment on your ass. Because if this thing continues, nurses feel threatened. And if they ask for a special hospital to assess you, somebody's going to come down from Brampton or Broadmoor to assess you. And if they think you're a special hospital case, that's where you're going. And he was one of those that actually managed to escape. Don't ask me how, but I think he went down the drain pipe of, through the toilet or something. But so it can be done. People can kick up, through frustration. And in those situations, you don't know what's best. You don't know if you're better off just playing a little bit of mad and, spitting out your medication so that you can get out, or kick against the system, which can come down pretty heavy on you. So while in that, working there, a friend of mine actually opened, didn't know what to do. The truth is, he had a property in Tottenham, and he had had a tenant that wasn't paying the rent, and so he went, put all the guy's stuff in his suitcase, put it outside. And the guy promptly took him to court, you see, and he had to cough up, I don't know, about £1,000 or something, because he should not have done that. Never mind the fact he wasn't getting his rent. And so he was, he was on the phone to me, and he said, he didn't know what to do. And I said, well, look, if you set your place up as a residential home, I said, I could actually fill it, for the simple fact that there are so many people in the system. That moving from medium secure to community, can't happen because of this, it's like a bottleneck, the facilities aren't there. And sometimes when you phone establishments to say, look, have you got any vacancies?
Haven't got any.
Well, they haven't. And those that did, if they said yes and you gave them a kind of a profile of the person you want to refer, the odds are the next day you get a telephone call saying the vacancy is gone. Because what you're looking to refer is probably somebody that's coming out of Broadmoor or Rampton. And the fear was there. Because,
and I suppose everybody deserves a chance.
Yeah, but people weren't looking at that, you only have to say, Rampton and Broadmoor, and all kind of images come up. And I think, Tina and I saw that you could set up a service that, the objective was to be head and shoulders above everything that was wrong. Starting with the brochure. In most cases, you get brochures about residential care homes. They were black and white. They were printed on a piece of A4 paper about, you're lucky if you had 2 or 3 sheets which might have terms and conditions, but it was always, A4 stapled together. We thought that the brochure had to be something that, if you can imagine a doctor's waiting room, magazines which represented brochures, always had to be the one that you would get up and go for. So it had to be appealing to the eye.
Yeah, that's right. It had to be unique.
It had to be, yeah. And so we came up with 2 hands shaking beneath a family, like a ordinary family dwelling, because we wanted to move away from the whole institutionalized buildings as well. And it had, you know, Cascade House, commitment to care in the community. And the name Cascade obviously was taken from the fact that I wanted to have my mama, you know, build my mother a house in Cascade.
Lovely.
So that's where the name came from.
So you did in spirit, really, didn't you?
I did. I mean, you know, the funny thing was, after 3 years, within 3 years of opening, because the business became extremely successful, we set up the first home late 97, 98. And we were inundated with referrals. Firstly, because of the work I did before working for the local authorities, forensic services. You know, people would, you know, we sent out all these brochures, and I would get calls saying, "Are you the same Tony Agostini?" So the answer to that was yes. And we then decided to move away from me fronting the business to the business fronting itself. So people had to stop referring to Cascade because of Tony Agostini. They had to refer to Cascade because of Cascade. So I would go out and take out, you know, a member of staff and show them how to do assessments, how to do reports. And as the referrals came in, they would be going out on their own. So I began to step back a bit. You know.
You built up a good reputation.
Oh, very good, yeah. Like I say, within 3 years, we got the Investors in People Award.
Oh.
You know, I was really quite, yeah, I was so proud and so chuffed. Yeah, it was. I was very, very pleased, very chuffed.
And, you know, one of the questions I'm going to ask you is, what do you consider as your biggest achievement?
I suppose that was, in lots of ways. I mean, I couldn't, you know, I was asked, a very good friend of mine, a guy called Dennis Grant, he's my personal trainer as well as a friend, what is my legacy? And it's difficult. It's a difficult answer to give. You know, do I say, well, building this very successful business from nothing, which was an achievement, because that's where it got to and where I got to, starting from very, very humble and poor, you know, beginnings. You know, you're talking about a guy that missed out on a lot of schooling very early, but had the motivation and the ambition to push and thrive, to a very successful business that employed over 30 people, that could have expanded even further. I, funnily enough, look at some of my best achievements as to what's happening to my children, and the kind of level-headed, grounded, you know,
that you've given them.
That I've given them. And I see that as an achievement.
Of course,
yeah.
Especially in this time.
Exactly. Because I think, you know, my youngest son, Leon, when I lived in Stoke Newington, we had a conservatory. And sometimes I used to go out and sit when it's raining. And one day, you know, very young, he came and he said, "Why do you sit out here when it's raining, Dad?" And I said to him, "If you hear the rain on the kind of plastic roofing," I said, "you know, it reminds me of my childhood." I said, "You know, where I grew up, I had a galvanized roof. And so you used to hear the rain, you know." And so whenever it started to rain, you know, he was only about sort of 5, he would come and grab me and says, "Come on, Dad, let's go out." You know, and we would go and sit in the conservatory and listen to the rain, you know. And it was about getting them to see that where we are now, as people, as a family, you know, comfortable, it wasn't always like that. And one of the things that they did when they went back to Trinidad, I took them on the walk I had from St. Bart's Hill all the way up to
Excellent.
the Lady Young Road, which was like 3 hills, you know, for them to get an appreciation of what I had to do. I mean, the shack was no longer there.
And their roots.
Yeah, but this is it. It gave them an insight. And I did the same thing this year when Steve and Annette, you know, the 2 children I had before I met Tina, I took them out there. They didn't do the walk. But they got a sense of the journey made, you know, because it's a long way.
And I think that's important.
Yeah.
So is it something that you would recommend starting your own business or going into that field of work?
I would recommend both. First of all, the field of work. I think what it did, because of the training, it got me to look at myself. It got me to look at a whole lot of things. You know, I would often say now, when I look at people with mental health problems, dear, for the grace of God, go I. It could happen to anybody, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, so that's important. The other thing that happens is that the training gets you to look at yourself. You know, it gets you to look at, you know, a lot of terms like rationalization and projections. And you begin to analyze, not just other people, you should analyze yourself as well. And it gets you to reflect. And it's one of the things I've, you know, tried to say to my kids. At the end of the day, but especially Leon now, you know, I would say to him, look, you know, when you go into your bathroom and you look in the mirror, you must like what you see. Not in an egotistical way, but like what you see because you did this today. And reflect, could I have, you know, how could I improve it?
Yeah.
You know, how could I do better? So I look at those things as being important.
Yeah. So how does Tony relax?
That's a good question. I enjoy golf, but I play a lot when I'm in Tobago. Right? I play every day out there. When I'm here, I'm a fair weather golfer. You know, and the other problem I have is that being retired, you know, my friends work, so it means only weekends, and it's only weekends if it doesn't rain, right, or it isn't cold. I spend a lot of time with my grandchildren from Lisa's children, you know, which is fantastic. And I think it's family that kind of really keeps me in England. I think, if the truth be told, if it wasn't for the fact that we are a very close family, I probably would have just moved to Tobago.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll be back shortly. This is Profiles on Five Eyes TV.
Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Come on. Come on. Come on.
You catch me smoking my cigar. You have me smoking my cigar.
I hear you used to be a party animal. Is that true? Can you tell me about this?
Yeah, then, yeah, I mean, we did. We partied like hell. It was any excuse, you know, any excuse to have a party. And where we lived in Mitcham, you know, as you know.
Yes, I know.
It was any excuse to have, you know, parties, fancy dress, and they were always, I mean, it was such fun, you know. I don't think people do that any longer, you know.
No, I think it's very rare to hear about a house party. And going way back, there were always parties.
There were always, yeah, that's right. Because I remember, you know, we held them when we moved to Stoke Newington, surprise. You know, now the kick for me is having like surprise parties for people. Like, you know, Tina, who has been a victim
of
many surprise parties. I mean, one of the best ones we held for her was in Stoke Newington. Chris was involved. We spent the weekend, well, she was told we were spending the weekend at Chris's. At that time, Chris was playing music in pubs, and I left with him. And he was, his mum and his partner at the time were supposed to come up later on. And I said, oh, you know, I'm going to Chris to help him set up the music. And what we had done was we had planned this party for Tina. And when they were supposed to phone the house when they were leaving Chris's mum's near the city, we would kind of time the journey, and somebody would stand by the front door, and as they came wrong into Burwell Crescent, they had to flash the car light, you see, which would give us the opportunity to turn off all the music and everything else. And when Tina came in and they all went, surprise, happy birthday, it took her several hours apparently to, you know, to kind of get back into the, you know, her proper sense of mind, because she said she was so surprised by it. So that's where the fun is now. The fun is doing it that way. But I won't I think the energy for having it in your house now is gone.
No, yeah.
Because you got to clean up afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so now I don't mind kind of, you know, organizing them in like either a hotel, as we've done for Tina, or, you know, at Yum Yum's restaurant.
Talking about restaurant, well, this isn't a restaurant, but I also hear that you used to go to a place called Hilltop.
Ah, Hilltop was a
And it was a regular haunt.
regular haunt. Listen, that was oh God, without fail every Friday. You know, get all the little pennies together. I mean, the joke was at that time there wasn't a lot of money flying around for us anyway. You know, Tina and I and as a family, because many a time we didn't even have food for the table. But we managed to get the shekels together. Drive down, you know, it would be sort of like Chris, Terry, myself. Drive down to Brands Hatch.
But was this a boys' thing then?
It was a boys' thing. Always a boys' thing. Hilltop, you know, no decent man would take his wife or woman down the hilltop. You know, oh God, no, it was oh God, I tell you, I keep promising myself and Chris that we should go to Hilltop one of these Fridays, you know, because it was one of those places that you go and you see faces that you haven't seen for years, people you've lost contact with, that still club it. They club it down at Hilltop. Yeah, terrific.
So then what is next for Tony?
Next, I'm just dealing with a little inland revenue blip, but I would imagine that by sometime in the middle of next year, we're probably going to look at, I don't know, some small venture. I didn't think I would actually do it again. I really must say that. I thought, look, you know, I've had enough of, you know, running your own business, because it does take a toll.
It does, but I must say you've done exceptionally well in a relatively small period of time.
Yeah, in a short time we did, but it had costs. I mean, health costs. You know, I started, you know, it brought on diabetes, irregular heartbeat, all manners of problems. You know, because you see, my attitude is that it doesn't make sense two people worrying about the same problem. So sometimes Tina wouldn't be told what the problems were. You know, because, excuse me, it didn't make sense both of us worrying about it. So and then, you know, I would probably internalize it.
Yeah,
you know,
but I'm sure Tina and the rest of the family, they appreciate.
Oh yeah, and I don't know what we'll do. I mean, I'm hoping that the kids, I mean, I've advised them all to look at property portfolios with, you know, the little money they've given, and so far the two girls have done that. And I might do, Leon is at college at the moment, but I might kind of kickstart, you know, property for him and be involved with it that way. I think what I want to do now, I mean, I quite enjoy, you know, going backwards and forwards to Tobago, you know, 3-4 times a year. I enjoy playing golf. And I enjoy, you know, having my grandchildren and children around. I mean, normally on a Sunday, we've got my other kids come along, you know, so this is a madhouse.
Nice though, a big family occasion.
Yeah, we try to do it every Sunday. Yeah, you know, and I suppose it's a legacy. Maybe that's it. You know.
Okay, Tony, thank you very much.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
I mean, I've had an insight into your life which has been wonderful. It's been a pleasure interviewing you.
Thank you very much. Absolute pleasure. Thank you. You know, I came from, because I'm not embarrassed to say that I came from magic. That's a reality. It's what made me who I am.
Exactly.
You know, and so I would say, yeah, you know, I came from abject poverty, and Cascade was somewhere I wanted to, as a boy, you know, my ambition was to have a house in Cascade for my mum. And as I started to speak to him, I started to choke, and I couldn't speak. You know, there was a lump, I could feel the water in my eyes. I thought, oh God, no, Tony. And he just said to me, well, you've done it.
Exactly.
You've done it. You've given her the house in Cascade.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and yeah, so those, when you know.
But also, I think, going back to the poverty thing, I mean, to me, that is a great sense of achievement. And I think you have to talk about that. Otherwise, it's meaningless.
Yeah, well, and I'm not ashamed of it. in a way, it's like almost a badge of honor.
Of course it is.
You know,
yeah.
I'm very proud to say to people, you know, this is where I came from. Show people.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
And you know what, Tony? To me, that shows people that nothing is impossible. Because, in a relatively short space of time, the business was successful, but it's all the other things you've tried in between.
Oh, God, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so...
And I think it's about not being afraid.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I think, you know, okay, my mother is, you know, would say to me, you know, education, ambition and motivation. And I would like to introduce on the lack of fear, because I think if you think about it,
Yeah.
fear gets in the way.
Fear plays a big part to everything.
Yeah.